Good evening. If everybody could finally, and especially county commissioners, could find their seat and sit down. Thank you. What a great turnout. This is very exciting. Every year, this Summit County, you all are the lead off for OUR, and I'll explain who OUR is and who I am in a second, but you are the first of a series of State of the River meetings that the Colorado River Water Conservation District, my employer, sponsors and partners with local watershed groups around our district. The Colorado River District is the largest district of any kind within the state of Colorado. We're 28% of the land area of the state. We represent western Colorado, all the drainage of the Yampa River, the White River, the main stem of the Colorado, the Gunnison and the Uncompahgre. So 15 counties, all of northwest and west central Colorado. We have 6 of these. This is our first State of the River every year, and every year Summit County comes out, turns out, and this is fabulous. This year is the first time that we had the little reception, a little early hour, social hour ahead of time. Is that a good thing? Does that work for people? Good. Well, I certainly thank everybody because there was a huge turnout here an hour ahead of time when I was just arriving late. So thank you all for coming. And if you haven't seen one, we'll walk you through it. But if you want an agenda, they're out on that center round table right out front. Also, there's a shameless self-promotion. The Colorado River District, my employer, we have an annual report that we frankly are very proud of. We put this together as eye candy so that it serves way more than just a record and a disclosure or disclaimer of what it is we're doing with your tax dollars, but try to make this an educational piece as well as an attractive piece. So you see that we've made it in large format so you can put it on your coffee table or anybody else's coffee table that you happen to see. There are copies around as well. Please take one or more with you and enjoy those. We have a great evening, as always. We've got people here to talk about how the river runs and how we run the river, what it means to be a citizen and to an appreciator, as well as a consumer of Blue River water and the headwaters of the Colorado River. We'll try to connect all those parts together for you tonight and talk about just how hard we make this river work. And that's really all I'm here to do, is to welcome you all, thank you all for coming. You all are the reason, and let you know that you all have a role. It wasn't just to show up, it wasn't just the potato chips and the zucchini. It is to have a dialogue with our speakers. Get your questions answered, pique your interest, ask either during the presentations, at a question and answer period during the presentations, or afterward, of any of us who have been up here speaking. Come and talk to us, as well as the folks that we have on the side with their own displays. Talk to us about what we're doing, how you might want to plug in or become more involved. Your interest is expressed by your presence here, and we thank you for that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our host, our co-host, the Blue River Watershed Group, and Rob Berge. Rob? And who am I? Good point. Sorry. I'm Chris Trees, and I do the external affairs, which is a lovely title that has no meaning to almost anybody. I tell people that I do everything you don't want engineers and lawyers doing at the Colorado River District. That's who I am. Bob?
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. Yep.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you to the River District for co-hosting these. Not just the Blue River Watershed Group, but as Chris said, statewide, if it weren't for the River District, these States of the River occasions wouldn't have nearly the opportunity that we have now. I was talking to Troy a little bit earlier. It turns out, if you go all the way back to the early history of our Blue River State of the River meeting, this is the 23rd annual gathering about this topic, which is just incredible. And I think one of the things that I'm especially aware of with an audience like ours tonight, we have folks here who I won't go so far as to say There might be some young people in the audience that would wonder what the name of the river is that's running right by the building. It can be that low of a awareness level. And then we have folks here who spend every day, all day, working on this river. So please, get to know your neighbor. Please don't be shy. There is no question that somebody can't help with, and we're happy to answer those questions. And I will add, there are some things about the river that we have yet to learn. So with the Blue River Watershed Group, I'm Rob Berge. I'm serving as the coordinator for the group, and happy to do that. Our board members are all here tonight, and you'll see us, the Blue River folks, and recognize us by our name tags. I won't take time to introduce everyone individually. And you'll also meet Ellen Olson if you haven't. She's the blur everywhere, she's everywhere, and Ellen is responsible for putting tonight's event together. So let's give Ellen a hand at least, and all our board members. And is Ellen somewhere in sight? I can't see back there very well, but thank you, Ellen. Now, in terms of tonight, as Chris mentioned, the agenda, our itinerary, our speaking schedule is amazing. So please, another thing to keep in mind, if somebody doesn't introduce themselves, then tell them they better do it so we can remember who they are. And there are some really awesome insights. There are going to be some things tonight on the agenda that I am just going to be learning about tonight, which is pretty fascinating. So thanks again, and with no further ado, I'll get us started. And Troy will be our first speaker of the night. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Troy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out on this gorgeous May evening. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you heard about this event through the paper? Just raise your hand. I'd just like to get a good feel of where folks are hearing about this. How about personal email from me? Are you on my email distribution list? Okay. Radio? I heard that we had maybe one radio ad. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming out. So I don't know if you noticed on the State of the River poster that Jim Pokrant pulled together, but on there he stated that I was the Summit County water expert. And unfortunately, I was in Utah when he put that out for some proofing before he went to print on that. And I was thinking, okay, well, knowledgeable, check. Experienced, check. Committed, engaged, check. Expert, I don't know. I think we'll save that moniker for when I get my first correct guess on the ice melt contest that the Rotarians put on. So we'll save that one. So what are we all here for tonight? The snowpack. So this is this year's snowpack. This is the snowpack above Dillon Reservoir. So we have two primary snowpack sets of numbers that we look at. This is above Dillon Reservoir. So right now we're sitting at about 115%, which is pretty good. We're kind of sandwiched there right in between the big year in 14 and then last year was a very interesting year. I don't know if you all recall, but I think we walked out of here and it started snowing that evening, and it didn't stop till Memorial Day, if you recall. So I guess the caveat here is, whatever I present here, it may change tonight or tomorrow or next week, right? And I just want to share with you, I'm very excited that Joel Gratz is here, and I want to share with you the reason why I invited him. One of many reasons I invited Joel this evening. So back in the fall, I don't know, how many of you followed Joel's forecast? Awesome. How many of you came here tonight because of Joel? I'll show your hands. I did. So back in the fall, I don't know if you guys recall, but Joel had forecasted a wet November, December, January, February, and a robust March and April. So I don't know what most forecasters' success rate in their forecasts are, but I think Joel has kind of set the bar at a new level. And I'm looking forward to his presentation here in about a half hour. I just wanted to put a shout out here to my assistant. So I don't know how many of you know, but I started volunteering for NRCS a couple seasons ago, and this is the Blue River Snow Survey. This is a manual survey course. It's right at the base of Hoosier Pass, and oops, I'm sorry. And this is my helper, my son Tobias. He came out Saturday, and we took the final measurement for the Blue River site. So that's the snow survey course that you can see right behind us. I assure you, tomfoolery aside, I can assure you the integrity of the data. We don't need to make any adjustments to that last chart that I showed you. So let's back out a little bit. So Summit County, we're sitting pretty good. Let's look at our neighbors here in the state. Again, I think unarguably you can say that it turned out to be a very decent snowpack year. As a total across the entire state, we're sitting about 110%. It's great. It looks really good. So now, I think, this is my, so I threw in a slide here just to remind you. I forgot what I put in here. This is just a reminder of where we were at 1 year ago tonight. So this is before the snow that started that evening and lasted for the rest of the month. So noticeable improvement over last year. So you guys can hold me accountable here. I think I've told you every year, starting with the first year. So my first year doing this was 2012, May. I had told you that every single year I am going to stand up here and I'm going to draw your focal point, the collective focal point, from the tip of our nose and try to give you an idea of what the bigger picture is looking like. So as you can see, it's a big, beautiful world out there, very colorful. Hopefully you're seeing from this graphic that our neighbors to the northwest certainly did not have a very robust or stellar year. And also our neighbors on the lower Colorado, within the Colorado River Basin, did not have a great year. So I just want to call that to your attention. You know, while things are nice and rosy and wet and looking great here in the county, if you look throughout the entire Colorado River Basin with a capital C, not quite as rosy. So how many have been already this month? How many are going this month? Raise your hands. All right, we've got a few back there. So this is Lake Powell, for those of you who don't recognize the telltale bathtub ring up there. I put this up here just to kind of, again, draw your attention to the bigger picture. While we sit here at the headwaters, there are another 30 to 40 million people who rely on the water that starts right here. We're so very fortunate, water that starts right here in our backyard. 30 to 40 million people. That's a lot of folks. And if you are in tune with some of the recent studies, I'm referring specifically to the Colorado River Basin, Colorado River Water Supply and Demand Study by the Bureau of Rec. It's projected that by the year 2050, we're going to have a 3.2 million acre-foot shortage. And that's due in large part to increasing demands, climate change. So again, just want to call your attention to that. And the projected inflows for Powell, this number may have been updated. Chris, please help me out if you've seen more recent numbers, but this is the most recent projection for inflows to Powell this season. So 74% of average, or 5.3 million acre feet. And for the water wonks in here, you probably look at that 5.3 million acre feet and you're pretty dialed in with the significance of that. And of course, just to share with you folks who aren't aware, the upper basin states, Colorado and Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, we are contractually obligated through the 1922 Compact to deliver, on average, 7.5 million acre feet of water to the lower basin states every year. It's a rolling average, so it's 75 million over a 10-year period. So needless to say, when the numbers are this low, what happens is we start tapping into that this bank account of ours, and that's really what it is. It's our bank account against accounts payable to the lower basin states. And there are some very significant consequences when Powell starts getting below critical levels. One of which is water supply, and another is power generation. If this If this facility cannot generate power, then our electric rates go up. So that's just another concern. And I just want to share with you just a story since we're on Powell. One of those moments to share with your child that's just something you'll never forget. We had camped here here at Powell about 7 years ago, and my daughter Abigail, many of you know, we went down to the dock, which was much further out than it normally is, and we toured one of the houseboats. And I pointed out to her the slide that was on the back end of the boat, to which she responded, "So where's the pool?" So just real quickly, coming back to the county, this graphic, even though it's just showing 10 Mile Creek, it's really representative of all the drainage basins here in the county right now. Right now we're looking at about average flows. Of course, that's probably due in large part to the cooler temperatures we've had, but I anticipate, if we do get a warm up and more precipitation, those flows will likely come up. And again, this is 10 Mile Creek, so the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center, they put together forecasts for us on 3 of our drainages. And again, let's see if I can point this out. The square there is the 50% exceedance, so there's a 50% chance that the flows will be higher, or 50% chance that they'll be lower. This one down here is the 90%, the lower one, 90% exceedance, 10% exceedance. So there's a 90% probability that the flows in 10 Mile, the peak flow in 10 Mile is going to be, probably 600 or thereabout. So again, this is representative of most of the drainages throughout the county. So we've got a lot of water wonks in here, and I'll I guess consider myself one of them. But when it comes to meteorology wonk, I will definitely defer to Joel. This is about the extent of my meteorology forecast. So this is from NOAA. This is for the following 3 months. So this is May, June, July. And to interpret that for you, if you can't read the numbers, basically what it's saying, and Joel, please correct me, is there's a 40% probability of above average precipitation in that, right there, basically centered on Colorado. And this may have been updated recently too. I'm sure Joel probably has the latest, greatest. So I've shared with you the stream flows. I've shared with you what's potentially on the way. So now we'll just talk about what's on a lot of folks' minds this time of year. You see the creeks starting to rise and start thinking, okay, when are the big flows going to come? Typically in the county here, it's usually about the first or second week of June. That's when you're going to see the peak flows and all the bigger drainages. Of course, so Soda Creek, where I live, it's coming up. It hasn't peaked yet for neighbors who are here. I think Eric was out there somewhere. So Soda Creek hasn't peaked yet. Is Tom Long or Jeff or Fred, are you in here? I was wondering how Acorn Creek is looking. I'm sure Acorn Creek's probably coming up as well. So those lower creeks, you're going to see those rise real soon, probably in the next week or two. The larger basins, it'll be more towards the first, second week of June. I just want to share with you, we have a phenomenal emergency manager here in the county, Joel Cochran. Joel, are you here tonight? I don't think he is. He organizes an annual meeting where we get together and we discuss basically what we call high water preparedness. So we get together with all the towns, we get together with County Road and Bridge and the Town Road and Bridge and emergency services, National Weather Services there, and we all just kind of sit down. I provide numbers and snowpack numbers, river flows, and we just kind of assess the situation. One thing, kind of the take-home message for folks, and I think I say this every year, and I'll just continue saying it every year, it's very important to remember that there's a risk or a threat for flooding regardless of what the snowpack is. It could be 50% snowpack or 150% snowpack. Obviously, it's going to be more serious, with much more snow, but given the right conditions, and those conditions are very warm daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures above freezing for 4 or 5 nights, and then throw on top of that a significant rain event, and then that's when you want to start heading for high ground. So Just want to share with you, if there's one thing that you want to do or contribute to our preparedness effort, one thing I would encourage everyone to do is just check the culverts that are in your neighborhood. Check them for any kind of debris that might be in there. Call your town road and bridge or the county road and bridge. Have the crews come out and take care of that. Okay, so here's the collective. So this is the business side. So of course, as water commissioner, I'm obligated to share with everyone that currently the Colorado River is free. It's a free river condition on the Colorado River. However, we're special up here in the Blue River Basin, as I've learned in my last 5 years. Currently, Green Mountain Reservoir is and has been the calling priority on the river, on the Blue River. So for all my water users, I'm sure you're well aware because you've received my email and my update. That is the current priority date, 1946. Current admin number for folks. Admin number is critical. If your admin number is larger than that, you're out of priority and you need augmentation water or HUP protection, historic user pool protection. Basically a pool of water that sits in Green Mountain Reservoir. One local topic or issue, just to kind of point out to you. So last year, Town of Breckenridge engineers and the dam safety engineer for Division 5 just had some concerns with goose pasture tarn. And those concerns were just the integrity of some of the concrete down at the lower end of the service spillway. There was some concern there for a couple of weeks during the peak of runoff last year. Got through it, and what they are currently doing, for those of you who live on the south end of the county, you probably noticed a noticeable dip or lowering of goose pasture tarn. What they did was they lowered the water, and what they are doing is what they're going to do, so this other spillway, so the one that's over there on the right as you're looking at the photo, that's what's called an RCC spillway, which basically that's a fancy word for roller compacted concrete, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, we've got this earthen dam, we want to shore it up, we want to beef it up so it can pass a much higher flow event. So what they're going to do is, they're actually working on this currently, they are going to lower this RCC spillway by 4 feet. They're going to armor it a little further. They're going to put in just kind of a temporary little diversion dike to get that water over to that RCC spillway. So now that RCC spillway will now function as what's called the service spillway. And the intention there is to just keep the water off of that questionable or marginal concrete and give the town and the engineers and the Division 5 engineers some time to come up with a game plan and address the problem correctly. So just want to bring that to your attention. So rain barrels. So this has been a kind of a hot topic recently. It almost passed last year, but I thought I'd throw it in because I have received a lot of phone calls on it. So this is House Bill 1005. I believe Governor Hickenlooper signed it just in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't go into effect until August 10th, I believe. Just the basics of it, you are limited to no more than 2 barrels and no more than 110 gallons of water. And you can only collect rainfall off of your roof. You can't go hanging up and draping tarps and trying to collect everything that falls within your yard. And it's also limited to either single-family residences or multifamily units with 4 or fewer units. So, actually, you know what? I want to say one thing. So this is just a personal note. This is just my own personal thoughts on the whole rain barrel issue. I can certainly understand the legal side of it and why it was kind of hung up, and the concerns from agriculture about every drop of water is spoken for. Personally, I think it's a great step forward in the sense of education and awareness, because I'm sure I don't have to tell any one of you in here that we live in a very arid environment, and the average precipitation in our state is 16 inches. Well, it's actually about 15 and a half. So I think once folks put these rain barrels in and start having a hands-on, firsthand experience of how little precipitation we have here in this county, in this state, I think they'll have a much greater appreciation for how precious our water resource is. So that's it. From conservation to conflagration. That was the line I wanted to throw in there. So for those of you who are interested in harvesting something else, I just would like to share with you that, of course, there are some rules that you should be aware of. And I hesitated on putting this in, but I'm seriously getting so many calls from either potential growers or neighbors of growers that I just thought I'd better throw it in. I will refer those of you who are interested to what we call, it's basically a flyer, I think is what it's called, informational flyer on Amendment 64. So I'll just summarize for you what it says there. So you as a homeowner, regardless of whether you're on municipal water or well water, you can grow up to 6 plants, 3 mature and 3 immature, I guess is what they refer to them as. That water can only be used, or the plants can only be used or grown inside the house or inside of an enclosed, secure structure. So that leaves kind of some wiggle room there as far as what you can and can't do. But I guess, so I've had a number of phone calls and people are asking me what I can do about it. There certainly is a nexus within which I do have authority and can step in, and that nexus most likely will be with the commercial grow operations. So if we're talking about a big operation and they don't have a secure water supply or a legal, legitimate water supply, I will certainly step in. If it's a household, that's going to get a little more fuzzy, and I would refer everyone to Department of Revenue's Marijuana Enforcement Division. This should be your first information source, your first call. If you have any questions or concerns about the legality or illegality of a grow operation. Did I skip? Okay, and then so I guess just kind of going back to kind of the big picture. I'm really encouraged to see all of the move from arbitration to collaboration or cooperation. I mean, you've really witnessed a lot of that here in the last 5-10 years. And some of the examples are the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement. Huge. I mean, that's how many years in the making, Karn? 12, 15? A lot of years went into that. And I just want to share with you, and also, very importantly, the Colorado Water Plan, which was just released this past November. Huge. One message that I like sharing with folks is that there are no passengers on Spaceship Earth. There are only crew members, okay? And one thing I would just like to share with everyone is that I think the leadership has been provided and demonstrated here with all these agreements and all these cooperative efforts, not only here in Colorado, but also in the lower basin states. The lower basin states right now are facing some very serious problems with access to water in Meade. I mean, we're probably within 20, 30 feet of, Chris help me out here, probably within 20 feet of the critical threshold. At which point, California, well, not so much California, Arizona and Nevada are going to, have to make some hard decisions and really cut back on their water use. I just want to bring you kind of back to the bigger picture. We're all in this together. And one thing that we can all do, so we have leadership out there that are, putting forth all this legislation and these cooperative efforts. But what we're lacking are champions, and those champions really are you and I, everyone in this room, your neighbors, because we need to take this legislation and work to the next level and basically implement these changes. And one thing I just want to throw in here real quick is High Country Conservation Center. They approached me last year. We just secured a $32,000 grant from CWCB to fund the development and implementation of a county-wide water efficiency program, which is going to be modeled very similar to the Roaring Fork Valleys that they just finished, I think, about 2 years ago. We'll skip on. I just want to throw in another quick reminder. Water over coffee, every first Monday and third Monday of the month, 9:30 to 10:30. You can stop in. Be more than happy to chat about current issues, current concerns, current conditions, or if you just want to chat about water, more than happy to. And that's it. Am I over on time? Yes? Okay. I rambled on. Thank you, everyone.
I'm not quite as tall as Troy, so I need to do some adjustments here. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Kalsum Abbasi, and I work in water conveyance for Colorado Springs Utilities. And for those of you who may not be familiar with our system, we have water in about 25 reservoirs, mostly in the Arkansas River Basin, of course, but we do have several on the West Slope and one on the South Platte River. Overall, for the past 3 years, our consumption in Colorado Springs has been down. Of course, in 2013, we were coming off the 2012 drought, and so we had watering restrictions in place for 2013, which restricted our uses. And then, of course, September 2013, we saw big rains, not quite as devastating as what happened on the South Platte River, but we actually had quite a bit of flooding that year. And we've had very wet, or at least very well-timed rains in 2014 and 2015. So our consumption over the past 3 years has actually been below our long-term average. And as a result, our storage has stayed pretty full. This year, right now, we are at about 80% of capacity stored system-wide. And typically this time of year, we should be at more like 73, 74%. So in different collection systems, that means different things. For Upper Blue, it's not quite so much of an impact because of the way our system works. And maybe I should back up and explain our system really quickly. Our collection systems are on either side of Highway 9, just this side of Hoosier Pass. And then, of course, we have Upper Blue Reservoir, which is the one that sits right below Quandary Peak. So between Upper Blue Reservoir and Montgomery Reservoir, which is on the other side of Hoosier Pass, we have a tunnel, and we collect water on this side of the divide and take it over to the middle fork of the Upper South Platte River and store it in Montgomery Reservoir. So our collections on the Upper Blue side are really determined by, of course, snowpack on this side. And I don't bring graphs typically to this meeting because you'll see a lot of snowpack and runoff graphs. I don't feel like I need to add to that. But I do look specifically at the Hoosier Pass SNOTEL site when I'm doing my yield forecasting. And I checked as Troy was talking, and I think I saw that as of right now, Hoosier Pass is about 130% of average snowpack right now. So we're expecting a big year on the Blue River. But as I was saying, I forecast yield on this side, but I also have to take into consideration how much I think I'm going to get on the South Platte side for Montgomery Reservoir. And then that water is then piped 100 miles to the north slope of Pikes Peak, right above Colorado Springs. And so I also have to take into consideration how full those reservoirs are, our terminal storage there, and how much snowpack we have on that system. And this year on Pikes Peak, it's pretty high. I think our north slope of Pikes Peak weather station is showing about 125% of average. And most of those have been late season storms just in the past month. We had a pretty dry February and a pretty dry early March, and end of March and April, we started to get hammered. So we have quite a bit of water sitting on Pikes Peak right now, which can then back up the chain and kind of limit how much we're able to divert off of the Blue River system. So my April yield forecast, I haven't been able to do a May forecast yet, but I'm forecasting that our Blue River system will yield 12,500 acre feet. Our average diversion off of this system is about 9,000 acre feet. And I'm thinking that of that 12,500, we will probably pick up about or we will probably offset about 4, maybe 5,000 acre feet on the South Platte River side. So what that means to folks in Summit County is when we're at the peak of runoff, if we're limited in our diversions, we'll see a lot of runoff coming down Highway 9 off of our system. And most big years like this, we'll start getting phone calls asking to divert more through our tunnel. And we do what we're able to do. But in a year like this, when we have big snows on this side of the divide and on the other side of Hoosier Pass, it becomes a bit tricky for us to help out. That said, I was able to participate in a tabletop exercise last week with emergency management for Summit County and kind of talk through some potential scenarios, how we would handle those if there were either a dam failure or at least just high flows in the Blue River. And so that was really helpful. It made us more cognizant of timing our diversions, keeping some space on the Montgomery Reservoir side of our system so that when we do hit peak flows, we're able to do what we can to kind of skim some of those off. And again, we're at the very top of the system. Our flows are pretty limited up there, and they multiply quickly as they come downstream. But I didn't have too much to share with you today. Our operations will be pretty standard. The only thing I wanted to bring up to you, I kind of noticed it on one of Troy's slides, although he didn't mention it. It was kind of a flash on the Upper Colorado River Commission putting out an RFP for applications for the Pilot System Water Conservation Program this year. And what that is folks apply to sell water basically to the program, which will then be shepherded downstream to Lake Powell, I presume, at least over the state line. So Colorado Springs Utilities did put in an application this year. We have not heard about the results, but our application was to provide 1,000 acre feet of water from Upper Blue Reservoir. So if that application is accepted, sometime this summer, I'm going to guess it will be late summer, early fall, we will participate that and we will release 1,000 acre feet to that program. And Upper Blue Reservoir, just for some reference, holds about 2,000 acre feet. So we will hold back half of that for this program if our application is accepted. Other than that, I don't really have much more to share. If anyone has any questions on our operations or how our system works, I'm happy to answer them.
So let's do the questions at the end.
Oh, okay, at the very end. Okay.
So feel free to stick around, and all the speakers will still be here.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So who's up next? Bob. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with some other Denver Water folks. I was thinking they could just stand up and wave real quick. Just stand up and wave. There they are. They're all in the back, huddling together. So my name is Bob Stager. I'm the manager of raw water supply at Denver Water. I always thought it'd be kind of fun to take my own photo and give myself credit for it. So there it is. I'm published. Okay, so I don't have many slides. I was planning on talking for about 10 minutes, and I guess the questions will be at the end of everything. So I wanted to talk about snowpack. I'm going to skip the snowpack above Dillon because Troy already showed you that. I'm going to show you the South Platte snowpack and tell you why that's important. Kind of review what our goals are when we make decisions about operating Dillon Reservoir. And then we have some projections for how we think things are going to go this season. And usually they're wrong, but we're going to give you our best projections. And then eventually we'll have time for questions, I think. Okay, so this is the snowpack in the upper South Platte River Basin above Denver Water's diversion facilities. And the kind of grayish line, that's a normal year. You can see how the snow water equivalent builds and then it melts. And the blue is this year. So on the South Platte side of the divide, snowpack's above normal. And that's important because when our eastern slope supplies are good, that means we don't have to take as much water from the western slope to the other side of the divide. And I was doing some research before this talk, and Denver Water has two major trans-mountain diversions. There's Moffett Tunnel to the north of us, and then there's Roberts Tunnel, which takes out a Dillon Reservoir and puts it into the North Fork of the South Platte. So we've had those two tunnels in service for a little over 50 years. Moffett Tunnel's even older yet, but we've had two tunnels for about 50 years. And I was looking in the two lowest years in terms of trans-mountain diversions were last year and the year before. And I attribute that, partly to Mother Nature because we've had good water supplies in the South Platte, but also our customers are doing a better and better job every year, I think, of conserving water. So we've had two very low years in terms of trans-mountain diversions, and that indirectly helps Lake Powell, which is, as Troy showed you, is pretty low. So just kind of wanted to, I used the same slide last year if you were here. I didn't change it at all. But these are our goals we have when we make decisions about Dillon Reservoir. So first is water supply. We want to fill the reservoir. In case next year's a drought year, then we have supplies that we can draw on. We also are very aware that Silverthorne sits below the dam. And especially in a big snowpack year like now, if we were to fill it up right now, then when the peak runoff hits, that water would just be passed through and there'd be probably some flooding in Silverthorne. So we can't eliminate the flood risk, but what we're going to do this year, like we've done in past high snowpack years, is we're going to start lowering the reservoir to create a little bit of space to capture the big inflows that we know are coming. Reservoir boating, the people that have sailboats, they like a full reservoir. Marina operators like a full reservoir because it helps them get boats in and out of the water. Rafting and kayaking, very popular downstream of the dam. It's going to be a great year for rafting and kayaking. It's going to be great. And there's trout fishing below the dam. Water's going to be a little high for a couple months, but I think by the usual time, by the middle of July, it should be pretty wadeable. And then the last goal we have is endangered fish. There are 4 species of endangered fish in what's called the 15-mile reach. It's a segment of the Colorado River that typically sees pretty low stream flows, which is not good for the endangered fish. So Denver Water, along with some of the other West Slope reservoir managers, we participate in programs to try to operate that we can help recover the endangered fish. So I just wanted to compare this year to last year a little bit, and also to the average of the last 20 years. So last year's in the left column, this year's in the middle column, and the average is in the right. Okay, so snowpack. Last year, about this time, it was around 16.5 inches of water. This year, it's around 19.5. So we have more snow on the ground than we did this time last year. I find this interesting, looking between May 3rd of last year and when it peaked last year, we gained almost 3 inches of water between May 3rd and May 24th. So we had a huge 3-week period last year. Whether we get that again this year remains to be seen. If we do, we'll be pulling the reservoir down even further. If we don't, the less precipitation we get, the less we'll have to lower it to prepare for the runoff. Let's see what else. Reservoir level, we're about 2.5 feet lower than we were at this time last year. So we do have a slightly more buffer than we did at this time last year. Currently, we're letting out 185 CFS. Tomorrow, that's going to go up to around 360 CFS. Next week, I imagine you'll see it in the 400 to 500 CFS range, but we're going to wait until we look at the latest forecasts next week before we make that decision. But if I had to guess right now, I'd say we'll be in that 400 to 500 range by next week. Last year, our peak outflow got up to 1,783 CFS. Our goal is to try to keep it below 1,800, and that's our goal every year, and that's our goal this year, and I think we'll be able to do it. So please read the disclaimer carefully at the top. It's hard to operate a reservoir when you don't know what the weather's going to do. But I know we have a lot of people in the audience that recreate and want to know about it. So my best guess is that the reservoir will be drawing it down sometime in late May or early June. It'll bottom out. I have that it'll bottom out between 9,008 and 9,912. I'm starting to think that maybe we should draw it down a little bit lower, but we'll be watching that carefully. Raftable flows, I always hear from Kevin Foley of Performance Tours. For commercial rafting, they like to see at least 500 CFS. And I think we'll have 500 or more for quite a while, starting here in a couple of weeks, and should last, I think, through the 4th of July weekend and maybe beyond. That's my spiel. I had a, well, I guess it's over. So we're saving we're saving questions for the end, right? Yes. Okay. Sure.
All right, good evening. Wow, this is quite the turnout. I've been to Grand County one before, and there's not near the people. Is this a competition? And anyways, my name is Victor Lee. I'm an engineer with the Bureau of Reclamation out of the Eastern Colorado Area Office that's in Loveland. We're responsible for the Colorado Big Thompson project, as well as the Frying Pan, Arkansas project, two trans-basin diversions that take water from the Colorado Basin into to meet the needs of the Front Range. They always say, give a little joke right at the beginning of the thing, and so today's May the 4th, and may the 4th be with you as well. And so, all right. Real quick, like here, I just wanted to point out the Colorado Big Thompson project. I'm going to be talking mostly about one component of the Colorado Big Thompson project, which is the Green Mountain Reservoir. And this is the reservoir that was built by the project to meet the current and future needs of the western slope, as well as mitigate some of the depletions that would be occurring at the collection system on the in the Granby area. Again, we collect water at the collection system, we put it through the Alvin Tunnel, and we send it down about 3,000 feet of head to generate power and deliver to Northern Water, where we have two large reservoirs where we store that water and make sure that it's put to good beneficial use. As part of, again, like I said, Green Mountain Reservoir, it has two principal components to it, and one of those is that it provides replacement water for any depletions that occur from the Colorado Big Thompson when the system is out of priority. And the other thing that it does is it provides storage for uses by the western slope. I often say that Green Mountain Reservoir is the littlest over-litigated reservoir in the West, and it's got a nice 70-year history of litigation, which makes it very challenging to operate because we have many, many different components of which we try to operate this reservoir. But as a result, I just mostly am going to be talking a little bit about what we expect our operations at Green Mountain Reservoir today for this year to be, As we've already seen, it's an unusually average year up until recently, and now all of a sudden everything's starting to fill up. I'm getting nervous. Am I going to be able to put that water through my power plants? Am I going to be able to make sure that I don't go over the spillway if I don't have to? We do expect to do a physical fill on Green Mountain this year, which is important because for the operation of this reservoir, if we don't physically fill, then we actually have contracts with Denver Water Board where they can actually store some of the water upstream for Green Mountain, and then they will release it through Williams Fork Reservoir or through Wolford Reservoir. The reservoir operations will reflect mostly a typical or average year. We will be, what did I say there? There is one notable exclusion, and there is actually the depletions will be quite low from Colorado Springs Utility and Denver Water this year, and so I will have more water than we would typically have in an average year coming into Green Mountain. We expect to support the Colorado River Endangered Fish Program this year, which includes the cross operation, and this is a period where we will try to release water from a lot of reservoirs in the upper basin to enhance the peak flows in the 15-mile reach and to improve the quality of the fishery within that for the recovery program. We will also operate, we expect to operate HUP surplus operation this year, where this is where we deliver a fairly large pool of water to also help the endangered fish at the 15-mile reach. Reclamation is a principal partner in the Colorado Recovery Program. We've seen this one again, so it was so average up until right about where it would normally peak out, and then all of a sudden it just keeps building. So we expect to see quite a bit of water coming down to Green Mountain Reservoir. This averageness is reflected in the forecasts that were generated by the Colorado Basin River Forecast System, always just slightly at average, slightly above, slightly below, and now we're back up to average flows for what I expect to come in as undepleted flows into Green Mountain this year. So what do I expect for releases to come out of Green Mountain this year? A couple points I want to point out is currently we're doing some testing on the power plant. That power plant will be starting to move water again through the power plant starting tomorrow. At that point, we will quickly be ramping up flows. We expect to participate in the cross, where we will take the flows up to power plant capacity. That's about 1,400 cubic feet per second. And then if everything behaves well, we expect to have flows in the 500 to 700 cubic feet per second for much of the remainder of the year. In particular, this period of time right here is what we call the HUP surplus period, and this is when we actually release water that the division engineer will shepherd all the way to the 15-mile reach, so it's not available for consumption at that time as well. Just real quick, this is what our projected fill for Green Mountain is this year. We expect to have a full pool this year. The dotted line is just what would typically be average. As you can see, during that period of the HUP, we'll be releasing quite a bit of water. So I'm told that 600 or 700 CFS is a good time to go boating down on the Blue River at that point. But, and that's pretty much all I have to say. And I guess we'll do the questions later. Great.
Hi, I am Joel Gratz. I'm going to be talking for about 25 minutes or so about what I do, weather forecasting, snow forecasting, and then I'll be doing a little giveaway at the end as well. So pay attention. I will be asking 2 specific questions at the end that both relate to numbers that I show up here. So little incentive. Make sure. Okay. First, we're going to talk about what is open snow, what am I doing up here, why are you even listening to me? Talk about the challenges of forecasting weather in Colorado. We will also talk slightly, just a slight bit of time around climate change. We'll take a look back at this past winter. How many had a few good powder days? Yeah, it was pretty good. The summer project that we're working on, and also we're looking ahead till next winter, because why not, make a 7-month forecast, right? So, and then of course prizes. So first, open snow, and I'm going to kind of roam a little bit so you can focus up here. Anybody from Pennsylvania here? Where from? What town? Wynwood. Close enough. I was in Doylestown. Anybody else from the east side of Pennsylvania? Yeah? York? New York. Or New York. Okay, that is to the east of Pennsylvania. Very true. Yeah. Fair enough. Well, for anybody from the east, you know the pain of growing up in the east if you're a big skier and you really like to ski powder. So that was my challenge. I was a ski racer. I was not very good at ski racing because I didn't like to go fast. I didn't want to fall. So that kind of makes you not a good ski racer. Technically, I was a pretty good skier, but I was not a good racer. I went to Penn State. I always knew that I wanted to study meteorology since I was in elementary school. So I did it. And then I came out to University of Colorado to study business and do an environmental studies master's as well. And lo and behold, I'm actually using both degrees, which is somewhat lucky and unusual. So I'm very fortunate for that. And my first powder experience was at Alpine Meadows. I had to wait 20 years, well, 16 after I started skiing, to actually get real powder. The nor'easters, at least in Pennsylvania, don't really count, I think, as real powder. So that was then, but I've transformed into skiing powder now is what I love to do. And here we go. And so I started a website called and an app called OpenSnow.com, which does snow forecasting. It was a scratch your own itch type of deal. I wanted to find the most powder. I started researching weather patterns. What they teach you in school at Penn State is nice, but they don't teach you exactly how to forecast weather patterns in Colorado. So it took me a while, and it took me about 6 years after quitting my job to build the business to where it is now. So it's a full-time job. Thank you so much for looking at it and supporting it, because this is truly my dream, to forecast weather every day and go ski pow. So many of you know, this is also not totally self-promotional, I just want to kind of set the stage. So many of you know it's Colorado Daily Snow is what I do every day. I write a forecast of where and when you might find the most powder around the state. And I also make forecasts for... So what I do is look at, next slide, is use weather models. Weather models are fancy computer programs. It's essentially no different than Microsoft Word. It's just a program that runs on a computer. They just take really big computers and they take a long time to run. And they break up the Earth into a grid, both horizontally and vertically. And they try to figure out, 1, what is the weather doing right now in each of those grid points? And 2, how will that weather change into the future? So that's, when you hear weather models, it's just a fancy computer program. It spits out information. I look at that information from many weather models and then use that to make my forecast. Next slide. And so when I do that, I come up with forecasts like this, and you can kind of see up at the top, this was from last week, the numbers, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 0 to 1. You know, it might seem a little bit random to you, but I put a lot of effort every morning into each one of those numbers for about 28 different ski areas and backcountry areas around the state. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but we try to get the trend right of which times and which days we'll see the most powder. Next slide. So this is kind of the evolution of Open Snow. It started 9 years ago, 8.5, 9 years ago, with a 37-person email list to my friends of where we're going to ski powder that weekend. I quit my job 3 years later, made very little money for 2 or 3 years, and then we finally ramped up, and we now reach 1 to potentially 2 million people. That's not just me, that's with our other forecasters forecasting Tahoe and Utah as well. So it's an actual business, and I couldn't be more thrilled to do it. Next slide. And for those of you interested in the business slide, I won't go into it too much. We can talk afterwards, but uh-oh. Wah, wah, wah. What I can tell you is that those first couple years of starting the business, we did not raise any money. I basically consulted. I wrote for other people. I wrote weather forecasts for people that would pay me, right? Even if it was for their website, and I made money that way. And then eventually, as Open Snow had a big enough audience, we could monetize through advertising and also through subscriptions. So we are going to, that was an odd one, huh? So I have to tell you, so my dad always, would tell me from a young age, hey, if you're giving a presentation, always think about what the worst thing that could happen and prepare for it, right? This is not the worst thing that actually has ever happened. I gave a presentation 3 years ago in Telluride to a conference of maybe 500-600 people, and they introduced me and they said, now, pleased to welcome Joel Gratz to the stage. And I kid you not, the second they finished my name, all power went out in Telluride. The room was dark. There were no windows. Everything was done. So I actually had a copy of my presentation on my phone, which I looked at, and then somebody shone an iPhone kind of flashlight on me, and I stood on the stage and kind of riffed for 20 minutes or so. So I am prepared to do that again, but thankfully we don't have to. So here we go. All right. So this was just a very brief background of the business of Open Snow. Those blue bars are a percentage of our revenue that comes from advertising. Subscription is the green bars, and consulting, basically writing for other people, having them pay me to do something for them, is the yellow. And you can see initially that's how I paid the bills, but right now we're much more of an advertising business with some subscriptions. I would love to do about 50-50 advertising and subscriptions at the end in the next couple of years. All right, let's see. All right, now to what you've all been waiting for, Colorado forecasting. So here's meteorology. Here's 4 years of undergraduate education in meteorology in one slide. That's it. I'm going to save everybody a lot of time and money. Weather happens when moist air gets high, goes upward, gets lifted. So all you need is 2 things. You need a smiling droplet of moisture, of water, and you need, sorry about that. I might have to stand over here. And you need lift. That's it. So if you get confused when we start talking about, the jet stream or orographic lift or a cold front or a warm front, just think about those 2 things, moisture and lift. That's what we need. Next slide. So where do we get moisture? Next. There's Colorado. Hit it again. So our best draw of moisture is the closest route to an ocean, which is a flow from the west-southwest. It's about 600 miles separates us from the Pacific Ocean to the southwestern part of Colorado. So the storms that come from that direction will generally deliver the most amount of snow to Colorado in just a day, because they bring the most amount of moisture. That moisture is very close to Colorado, the Pacific Ocean. That's the point where it's closest to Colorado. Another direction is from the southeast. So actually 3 weeks ago, when we had the big snowstorm, especially on the divide into the east, that storm was actually pulling in moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. So those 2 storm directions, wind directions, can be responsible for snowfall that's 12 to 24 inches in a day, because there's so much moisture, because the moisture is so plentiful. A third way, is from the northwest. Now that direction is best for Summit County, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but notice that moisture, that air has to travel over a lot of land and a lot of mountain ranges, so we don't get as much moisture from that wind direction. That is why we typically do not see 12 to 24 inches of snow here in one day. Yes, it can happen, but it's not as frequent as in southwestern Colorado or even east of the divide on the big upslope storms. We can still get as much snow as those other regions do, but it usually comes in smaller chunks, right? Like 6 inches, and then 8 inches, and then 5 inches, and then 10 inches, right? It's rarely going to be a 2-foot overnight dump, and that's why. Next. All right, here are 5 ways for air to get high. Let's see. Is that? Yep. Convection, and this is not on the test, so you don't have to worry about this, but I put this together in a nice acronym, CLOUD, right? Just in case you need to know. Convection, low pressure, orographics, undercutting, which is really a cold front, and I just had to make up the word undercut so that it would work with the acronym. and then D is for dynamics. A longer talk, or if you want to know more, we can talk about that afterwards, but the main one is orographics. Orographics works like this. Air runs into a mountain, and it's forced to rise. What happens when air rises? It expands due to lower pressure, it cools, and therefore the rain or snow or something fun happens to all the moisture in the air. So it falls as snow, hopefully, and then on the other side of the mountain, the air descends, warms up, and it dries out. So that, the wind hitting the mountain and being forced to rise, that is the number one thing that we have to focus on in the mountains of Colorado to forecast snow. Because our mountains are so big. If our mountains are very small, like at least in Pennsylvania, that's not as much of a factor. But here, it's the majority of the factor. So if you know the right wind direction to get air to go up, you can get the forecast right about 2/3 to 3/4 of the time. Those other things I talked about in the CLOUD acronym, convection and low pressure, those impact things. So that's why just knowing this isn't going to give you 100% accuracy, but this is really important. So that is, the secret sauce. Looks like a second grader, made a little map and put some arrows out. But that's effectively how I forecast. It took me years to figure out what the preferred wind directions were for different mountains around Colorado. And Summit County is absolutely northwest and from the north, basically. So if a wind comes from the northwest or from the north, that's usually quite good on average for all of the mountains around here. Loveland and A Basin and Keystone can do quite well on a west wind if it's super moist. But in general, if you remember nothing else, northwest is really good. If there's a southwest wind, head to Wolf Creek, head to Silverthorne, and yes, 1 out of 20 or 30 storms here with a southwest wind, you might get decent snow, but for the most part, the southwest wind is a snow killer here. It is just not good because the air is actually descending off of bigger mountains to our southwest instead of rising up into the county. So it's not just about amount of snow, it's about the quality of snow, right? And some of us really like to ski deep blower powder. Anybody like to ski deep blower powder? A few reluctant hands. Yeah, you can be proud of that. So something like this, how do we forecast this? Because there's all different types of snow. Some snow is thick, some snow is light. Well, the lightest snow comes from these dendrite crystals, these perfect snowflakes, just like the ones you used to cut out in elementary school, right? And why is this blower pow look like that? Well, because the dendrites with their little arms stack on top of each other, not close by, but there's a lot of airspace, right? Because the arms hit each other, they can't pack very closely together. So there's a lot of air in the snowpack. That actually means, it's probably not the best for the water folks in the room because it's not a super dense snow, but it is the most fun, I think, to ski. Now there are lots of different types of snowflakes. Where is that's the pointer? Center, okay. Okay. So this top one up here, the dendrite, that is the key. That's the big one. Whoop. There it is. I know, right? Here you go. I just wanted to show you everything just again and again and again. So you can see along the bottom is warmer temperatures to colder temperatures, and on the side is less moisture and more moisture. So to get these perfect stellar dendrites, you need temperatures between about 0 and 10 degrees up above mountaintop level, and also a lot of moisture. Otherwise, if all of those conditions aren't perfectly met, you're going to get snow, but it's going to look a lot different. And these other types of flakes can compact together much more tightly, and that's when the snow feels a little bit thicker. One other thing about snow, before I get to radar, sorry. Wind is a bad thing when it comes to skiing light blower powder. Why is wind the enemy of the stellar dendrite? What happens if it's windy? Well, it does blow it away, but what else? But we've all skied wind-blown snow, so that snow isn't blown away, but it's very thick. Why is that snow thicker? Breaks the crystals. Boom, breaks the crystals. So those nice little arms there that separate the crystals and put a lot of air in the snowpack, when it's really windy, the crystals hit each other, those arms break off, and now the snow crystals pack very tightly together. There's very little air in the snowpack, so it doesn't ski quite as light and fluffy. So one of the difficulties we have here in Colorado is tracking snow. tracking weather, but especially tracking snow. What we take for granted with the radar network in other areas of the country does not necessarily apply here in Colorado. So radar, there are about 160 radars around the country that were installed by the National Weather Service over the last 20 to 30 years. There's a radar dish in here. It looks like a big golf ball in the sky. This dish goes around and around, sends out a signal. If that signal hits something, it gets returned, and then we can infer that there's rain or snow. Sometimes it's bugs or dust. But yeah, bust. I was a little quick on that one. So sometimes it's bugs or dust. But this is how we track where it's raining or snowing. And this is what it looks like. I mean, you're all familiar with radar, I'm sure, of seeing it on TV, on an app. And it's pretty clear in this image. This is of my home state of Pennsylvania, where it's snowing, where it's raining, and you can reasonably infer when it's going to start, when it's going to stop, right? Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this and kind of understand what's happening. However, Colorado is challenging because we have mountains, big mountains. So if a lot of that snow is falling here over the mountain due to orographic lift, and the radar is over here, this other mountain might block the radar beam. So that radar does not even see the snow that's falling over here. Now, I know a lot of you in the audience are quite intelligent, kind of the engineering entrepreneurial type, and you might say, Joel, this is a really simple problem to solve. Just point the beam up higher, and then you can see the snow. That's also a problem. We thought of it. When the beam goes higher, it oftentimes will overshoot the snow. How many times have you been out skiing and it's been snowing, but you can almost see through the cloud, right? Like, you can almost see blue sky, but it's snowing. That's indicative of orographic snow. That cloud is very thin, and most of the snow is forming just within 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 feet of the top of the mountain. So if that radar beam goes up way higher, it's going to overshoot the snow. So in the summer, and we'll talk about this at the end, looking for thunderstorms with radar is actually pretty reliable because those thunderstorm clouds go way up high into the sky, so the radar can see the precipitation falling. But from the orographic snow in the winter, very rarely we'll see a lot of it on radar. So here are the 3 radars around Colorado, one on top of the Grand Mesa, one by DIA, and another one out by Pueblo. The colors show the better radar coverage, and the whites and blues show bad radar coverage. Guess where we are? And guess where all of our big ski areas are? This proves to be quite a challenge. So if you're wondering, man, it's dumping snow, but nobody's talking about it, me or other weather forecasters, probably it's because it's really hard to see with radar. Webcams continue to be my friend to actually essentially just look out the window and see if it's snowing. Just a little, for those of you who like to ski up in Steamboat, you will almost never see snow falling on radar, even if it's absolutely nuking at Steamboat. They could have 2 or 3 feet of the lightest surprising snowfall ever. You never see it on radar. So this is just not a reliable. I talk to a lot of people from out of state. Oh yeah, your app sounds cool, but I'll just look at the radar app I've got and I'll figure out when it's going to snow. They're not going to do a lot of skiing in Powder, if that's the case. Compare that previous graph to perfect radar coverage in the great state of Pennsylvania due to lack of mountains, and you can see the challenge that we have out here. So if anybody has an extra 5 or 10 million and wants to put up a couple radars on tops of mountains, you let me know. We'll make it happen. All right, let's talk briefly about climate change. I am not an expert in climate. I am an expert in forecasting snow in Colorado. This is a completely separate discipline. So what I am putting up here is the summary from a great report that I'll link to at the end. And this is basically a lot of very smart climatologists and water folks coming together and trying to give a summary report on climate. So this is off the baseline, I believe, from 1960 to 1990 is the average. That's the average temperature from 1960 to 1990, and it shows you the departure from that average from the start of the century, the previous century, all the way to about 2014. And temperatures across the state are rising. Does that mean that the temperature at Dillon Reservoir, where there's been a pretty long record, is absolutely rising? Not necessarily. There are a lot of stations around Colorado where the temperature has not risen, but there are some that has risen a lot. So when you average all of them together, you see a curve like this. The projections obviously caveat this. We're not wonderful at projecting 40 years into the future. But the projections generally show a rising temperature trend over the next couple of decades. This is the average, a rise, a couple of degrees of all of the models, and there are many models involved in this. Even the coldest models still warm things up by a degree or two, and the warmest models warm things up by many, many degrees, 4, 5, 6 models. So, or 4, 5, 6 degrees. Again, this is not my expertise necessarily. I'm not here to doomsday. This is about the best that science can do right now, is a continuation of the warming trend that we've seen. Of course, if a couple, 1 or 2 big volcanoes explode around the world, this whole thing is changed basically because of all the soot and ash that can go into the air, and then Earth could see a much cooler period. Maybe not forever, but for at least a couple of years. So big caveats into this. In terms of water, you can see the driest models produce less precipitation, especially in the southwest. The wettest models produce more, and so let's just say not too certain. We're more certain that the southwest, as we mentioned earlier, probably would see less precipitation, but here in Colorado, really just don't know over the future. So to summarize climate, temperatures have increased about 2 degrees in the last 30 years. They will likely increase. Precipitation has not shown a trend, a significant trend, and we don't know what that trend is going to be into the future. We can't reliably say. However, same amount of precipitation, warmer temperatures, potentially the shoulder seasons have let more rain instead of snow. Maybe the snow melts a little bit earlier, just based on warmer temperatures, potentially. I looked at a few high elevation stations a couple of months ago. I didn't see a higher incidence of rain during the winter over the last, say, 10 to 20 years compared to 60 or 70 years ago, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen sometime in the future if temperatures continue to rise. All of this is available in this is awesome, it's free. Just Google climate change in Colorado. The summary is a PDF that's all in bullet points. You don't have to be an expert at all to read it. It's helpful, and you kind of get the state of the science. All right, let's look back at this winter. Woohoo, yeah. So you've seen more of these graphs. I thought it was funny that you're like, yeah, I don't really want to show another one of these graphs because everybody's going to show one of these graphs. So that I'm included in the everyone. I'm going to show one of these graphs. So this is statewide. This is not just here in Summit or in one river drainage, but this is statewide. The red line, again, starting in October, the average snowpack peaks in early April and then rapidly declines. The thick blue line is this year across the state. So what you can look at is, average-ish. That's where we are right now. When you look across the state, and we just saw this slide before, the northern part of Colorado is doing better than the southern part of Colorado. But really, overall, for early May, these are great numbers. These are really good numbers. You might want to pay attention to a few of those numbers, as I might be asking a question about one of them sometime later. So, but we're in good shape here. Now remember though, this is compared to average for today's date, not necessarily peak, but today's date. So a lot of this good news is reflective of healthy snowfall in April, right? We had quite a bit of snow at the end of April. So people were talking about predictions on the span of weeks of what's it going to do in May. I'll tell you what, I'm going to one-up that. We tried to make a prediction, about a 6 to 7 month prediction from November through May, for snowfall around the U.S. And we tried to do this because everybody's interested. Everybody asks, well, what's the season going to be like? Whether or not I can answer that reliably, everybody still asks it. So we figured, hey, why don't we try to make a prediction? And we caveated this, and we told people, hey, this is the first year we're doing this. This might turn out to be horrifically wrong, right? But we're going to give it a shot. So this was the prediction we made in the fall. Blue is above average snow. Orange is below average snow. White is about average. And you can see Colorado on average, we said, yeah, it's going to be about average. And that actually did work out pretty well this year. It fluctuated above and below, but it basically worked out average. Then we said because of El Nino, probably more than average snow in the southwest, and less than average snow in the Northwest. Hey, reasonable prediction, and I'll tell you what, not only was that what we saw in our methodology, but most other forecasters had a pretty similar map to this. So we're like, all right, we feel like we're in the ballpark. You ready to see what actually happened? How many people think we were right? Raise your hand. Okay, overall, not just for Colorado. How many people think we got some big stuff wrong? How many people wouldn't answer no matter what I asked? Yes, perfect. Okay, then you're being honest. So this is what actually happened. So what you'll notice is, yeah, we were pretty good here in Colorado. We said average, it was about average. But the Northwest, which we thought was going to be not that good, actually worked out to be pretty well. The map that you looked at earlier, which showed below average snowpack in the Northwest, is largely reflective of a rapid meltdown over the last couple of weeks. But in terms of total precipitation and total snowfall during the meat of the snow season, they were near or above average. So they actually did pretty well. And you can see our neighbors to the southwest, they started super strong. Taos, New Mexico was something like 40, 50, 60% above average through mid-January, and then it effectively didn't snow anymore, which is a real bummer, and kind of the opposite of what we thought was going to happen down there. So the moral of this story, they stink. We're going to keep doing it because I look at it as a 20-year science project that eventually we're going to get right. And if you don't start now, you're never actually going to be able to improve and test it. But there are a lot of forecasters that will release long-range outlooks. For the most part, including us, I have never seen one be right consistently year over year for all the areas that they focus on. Anybody can get it right a year or even 2 years, but to do it multiple years is incredibly difficult to basically near impossible. And to boot, what I just showed you up there, that's interesting, seasonal snowfall, to the folks, the water folks in this room, and to a lot of you, but from a skiing standpoint, that actually doesn't tell the whole story. You want to know kind of what time of the season it would be better, right? For the ski areas at least, a lot of snow just before the holidays is much more impactful than a lot of snow in the 2 weeks between, in the middle of January between holidays or something like that. So we can't even do seasonal very accurately yet, so don't hold your breath in terms of doing 6-month outlooks down to the month. All right, 2 more things. Our summer project. People ask me, that's the number, 2 thing actually I get asked. The number 1 thing is, how can you keep a job and only be 50% right? And I've heard that for so long, it's just whatever. Usually I'm like, I'm 51, guys, come on. But the second thing is, what do you do in the summer? You're a snow forecaster. What possibly keeps you busy? And I would say that for the last couple summers, I would go to sleep in May because I'm forecasting every day from September through April and running the business. And I love it, but it's tiring. So I usually relax. And then we spend some time working on new features, working on advertising over the summer. Well, this summer, we are fortunately in a position where we have some money in the bank and the right people on our team that we can try to do a different project that I've been hoping to do for many years, which is summer lightning forecasting for high elevations. Because anybody been on top of the mountain and you felt your hair go or the static electricity? How many people enjoyed that experience? Yeah, it's not, we laugh about it. Obviously you can die. A slight notch better is that you get struck and don't die, but then have severe issues for the rest of your life. And a slight notch better than that is that you don't get struck, but you're really, really scared and don't have a whole lot of information of how to exactly avoid that in the future, which is kind of where I am. Thankfully, I've not been struck by lightning. I don't want to see that newspaper headline that a meteorologist has been struck by lightning. But I chase tornadoes for fun in the summer. I am infinitely more scared of lightning on top of a mountain than I am that I'm going to make a wrong turn in the plains chasing tornadoes. Because at least tornadoes, I can kind of see it and figure out what's going on and keep myself a safe distance away. Lightning, there's no guarantee that it's going to strike the highest point. If you're up and exposed, hey, you're out there. It could come to get you. So what we're working on, what? Yeah. How did a picture of me make that in? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Arm day today, huh? Arm day, no. Okay, so that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, and why do I put him up there? Well, because I want this app that we're coming out with to help you avoid Arnold clouds, which is my colloquial name for cumulus clouds that are tall and kind of bubbling up with a very hard body, right? They're not flimsy, they're not flabby, they are these hard bubbling clouds that are quite tall with a well-defined edge to them. So what does that look like? Right, this is over the plains. You're generally not going to see a thunderstorm like this over the mountains of this strength, but you can see here hard edge bubbling up. Like these aren't flimsy clouds in here. That is a rock hard solid cloud that has a lot of energy. Compare that to a picture I took last summer of kind of these flat, flimsy looking clouds. Are these Arnold clouds? No, these aren't going to hurt you, right? So we're trying to make a distinction between these two. And here's just another example of, this is a time lapse looking straight up of fuzzy, flabby, non-Arnold clouds, right? So not every cloud that pops up over a mountain in the summer is out to hurt you, but some are. So we're trying to figure out, one, how can we forecast that in advance? And two, how can we help you diagnose that when you're above tree line? So as a reminder, the only safe place to be during lightning is in an enclosed building or a car. There is zero way to travel 100% safely in the backcountry during lightning, but you can reduce your risk. Gazebos, they don't count. They're not safe from lightning. So if, come into an indoor building, a real building or a car. So how do you reduce your chances of being struck? The number one thing, plan to be below tree line by the time lightning could strike. And I know a lot of you, most of you are locals. This is kind of, yeah, I've heard that. Most of the people hiking 14ers aren't as experienced as you, and they might hear, oh, start early so you avoid lightning, but they don't really know. Past so many people. 2 years ago, I was on Grays, I was coming down, we went up for sunrise, which, we're like, oh, we'll be the only ones up there. No, there were like 30 people up there at sunrise. Like, wow, it's amazing. But we were coming down at maybe 10, 11, just as clouds were building. We counted 289 people going up, right? And nobody, was talking about the clouds building, I chat with people a little bit, but, I'm not going to tell them not to hike, right? And I don't want to be a know-it-all, but there's obviously an area for education. So plan to be below tree line. If you're caught above tree line, 1, descend as quickly as you can, and 2, spread out. Why do you spread out? So you don't all get hit, right? I mean, that's it. Spread out you're so far that talking is not comfortable. Like you almost have to yell. Like that's how far you want to be spread out. Because God forbid somebody in your party gets struck, at least everybody won't be struck, and then everybody else can rush to their aid, can help, can do something, rather than all being knocked out. So if you're caught, run downhill as fast as you can. Don't fall, because that's also not a good thing. But get downhill quickly and spread out. So what we are going to do to help you avoid Arnold clouds is we're going to target the 14ers. We're going to come out with an iPhone app just to start. We'll probably do Android eventually, but it'll be an iPhone app. You'll be able to plug in, and we're just starting with 14ers. You've got to start somewhere. And you're going to be able to plug in where you're going and when. And then we're going to use a host of weather technology, the best models we can get our hands on, and try to help you pinpoint when that risk of lightning will start, and then estimate based on hiking speed when and route when you should leave to try to be back below tree line by the time that lightning comes through. So I know a lot of you can probably do some of those calculations in your head, but when it comes to actually presenting that data from all of these weather models that are out there and are reasonably good, there's really nobody doing that right now, at least from a hiking standpoint. So what we're trying to build into the app is effectively what I do when I go hiking with my wife and friends, looking at all of these weather models, figuring out, hey, the first storm could go up by 11, we need to be over the pass, by 10:30 or something like that, and then back calculating when we need to leave, basically. So we'll see. If you're interested in that, go to trailforecast.com, throw your name in. It's just an email sign up. We'll let you know when the app goes live. So that's trailforecast.com. There it is. All right, bonus. Let's look ahead to next winter, because long-range forecasts stink, right? So let's do it. So the best way to forecast in advance. Long range is by looking at El Nino and La Nina, which simply describes the water temperatures in this part of the Pacific Ocean, here we are up here, and whether they're above or below normal. When water temperatures are above or below normal in that part of the Earth, that influences weather patterns around the globe, which somewhat predictably influences our snowfall here. It's not perfect, as you know, because we can't perfectly forecast seasonal outlooks, but it gives us a clue. So the red bars are the chances of El Nino, and the blue bars are chances of La Nina. This is now April, May, June. That's next winter. So you can see right now we're coming off of a strong El Nino year. But El Nino is going to rapidly fade, and then our chances of a La Nina go up to about what percent? Well, just keep that in mind. So, so we're looking at a potential La Nina year next year. Potential La Nina. So here is a graphic. Above this line is El Nino, warmer than average. Below this line is La Nina, cooler than average. Every one of those dotted lines is a weather model. So you can see they don't agree, but they all show some trend toward cooler than average water temperatures for next winter. So, okay, that feels pretty good. What does La Nina mean for Colorado? It generally means a storm track from the northwest, which, if you've been paying attention, is that good or bad for Summit County? Good. That's great participation. Thanks, guys. You just need to be motivated by powder and water, apparently, right? All right, so we can look back at past La Ninas and El Ninos. This is, I know, a very dense graph, but here's the middle line. Everywhere that the line dips below in the blue, that's La Nina, and everywhere it goes up into the red, that's El Nino. So you can kind of look back and say, hey, if we think next year is going to be a La Nina year, and we're coming off of an El Nino year this year, let's look over the past 50 to 100 years and look for cases where we went from El Nino to La Nina and see what the snowfall did, because that's a pretty decent analog predictor of what might happen next year. So when I look at that, one of those years, La Nina years, and I took all of these from Copper Mountain Snowtell, but it's roughly the same for Hoosier Pass and for Loveland as well. So this light blue line is the average, and here's the snowpack that year, that La Nina year, coming off of an El Nino year. That looks pretty good, right? Well, let's look at 98, 99, another La Nina coming off of an El Nino. Not amazing, but it hung around average minus a dry spell and then ended really strong. That's pretty good too. How about 07, 08? You guys probably remember this one. That was a good year, above average pretty much the entire year. And the last one, most recently, was what year? 10, 11. Boom. Yeah, hard to forget that one. So we've just picked out 4 potential analogs, and there's other stuff that goes into this aside from El Nino and La Nina, but it's a good start. And they all looked average to above average. Gives you some level of confidence that next season could be pretty good. But what did I say about long-range forecasts? Yeah, they stink. All right, so like don't mortgage your house on this, I would say. But I'm optimistic. All right, so I'll leave you kind of before we get to prizes with how to plan a powder day based on our level of confidence around predictability. 7 to 10 days out, I generally like to say that we can see a potential storm coming, but that's all I can say. So I would say toast the possibilities, but don't make any plans yet, right? It's still too far out. 4 to 5 days out, 4 to 5 days out, I'd say we have enough confidence that you begin to clear your schedule or at least block your schedule, right? Move the doctor's appointment. Don't let anybody schedule meetings with you on those certain days. We might not be dialed into the exact timing or amount of the storm, but we're feeling pretty good, like something's coming, and we know about what level of effort or of strength that storm's going to be. And then by 2 to 3 days out, we are confident enough that, of course, nothing's perfect, but that you should probably begin to start playing sick, right, at work. Like you scatter the emergency packets around the desk, so when you're not there in 2 or 3 days, nobody's really surprised. Like, oh yeah, Jim was getting sick, wasn't he? Yeah, all right. So that's kind of our level of, that's effectively what I do as well, right? Well, this is the kind of the time frame I kind of have built into the job that I can be sick, but that's another story. All right. So as a brief recap, we talked about open snow, snow forecasting around, specifically here in Colorado. Talked about Colorado forecasting. Why is it so hard here? The mountains. What is important? Orographic lift. What is the best wind direction? From the northwest, you betcha. Climate change, temperatures increasing, precipitation, not so sure. Look back at this past winter, our long-range forecast for Colorado was good, elsewhere not so good. Summer project, avoid the Arnold clouds, right? They're not friendly. That's trail forecast. And then looking ahead till next winter, La Nina might be quite good. So the last thing I want to do, and then we'll wrap it up. Can I take a picture of everybody? Yeah. To prove that people actually do want to listen to weather. Listen about weather. All right, give a little hoot and holler. 1, 2, 3. Put your hands up. Hey. All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. We'll do questions at the end. I'll be around for as long as you guys want to chat about weather. And I think we have one more quick closeout, so hold on just 1 second.